Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to episode 10 of Maker's Mic, a music makers podcast presented by LR Bags. Our guest this episode is Justin Weaver. Justin has made quite a career as a sideman. He's played guitar and mandolin for Highway 101, Joe Nichols, Wynona Judd, and most recently, the Dixie Chicks. He's played the Ryman, the Opry, and countless stadiums and arenas. But lately, he can be found flexing his guitar chops playing hillbilly music at one of Nashville's best dive bars, Betty's Bar and Grill. Justin's been hanging out with us here at our Nashville office the past couple of days, helping us demonstrate some of our new products that we're about to release. You can hear a little sample of them in the guitar track at the end of this episode. Is that a real...
No, I'm just saying that right now because it feels good.
Man, I hope we have conversation topics and you can repeat all the stories you've been telling over the past 2 days.
Nope,
because
absolutely not.
We have spent the past 2 days together, and as I've been listening to you talk, I'm like, man, that's a question I had for the podcast. Save it. But we're good.
All right.
Tell us about where you grew up and what growing up was like for you.
Oh, wow. Well, that's a long story.
Yeah, well, you can make it short.
Well, I've got 37 years of it. I was born in Texas, and my mother was a singer, still is a singer, I should say. And she was a honky-tonk singer in Dallas. So, my first memories were going to hear her band play around the Dallas-Fort Worth area as a little kid. And then she
at Jim Bob's, is that the name?
Oh, Billy Bob's.
Billy Bob's.
Yeah, actually, yeah.
Really?
Billy Bob's. I used to go there as a kid. There was these steakhouses called the Trail Dust.
Yeah.
Steakhouse. Yeah, my dad and I would go out, and my mom would be up there singing. She had a huge country band. Urban cowboy thing was really big then. So
cool.
It was the thing to do in the early 80s. So that's my first memories.
Uh-huh.
My mom started singing gospel music. They bought a van, got out of the house, and the three of us hit the road as a family. And we would sing at churches, and we'd sing festivals, folk festivals.
Yeah.
And I was pretty young then, so I wasn't singing much. And then when I hit about 10 or 11, I had a little guitar that my dad bought me that was in the back of the van on my bench. And I'd finish my schoolwork for the day. I would start messing around with that. So my mom showed me some chords. And then she said, hey, you want to come up and play a song? And I was like death grip frightened. I get on stage and instantly beads of sweat.
Uh-huh.
Even though it was like playing with my mom in front of a church, which is like the most forgiving audience because they have to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I'd be like, don't make a mistake. Just play the chord right, and anyway, so I did that for a number of years and progressed and started where I was playing with her all the time. And we made a couple of records, and we moved to Nashville. I was still pretty young. I think I was 12. So moving here, I was immersed into the musical climate, all the people. And
did your parents have a lot of friends and connections here, I guess?
No, I mean, we kind of moved here, not really knowing many people, but over time, like anything, you develop relationships with people, honest relationships, not really trying to, further your career.
Yeah, especially in the music community.
Yeah, it kind of has to be, well, it does. It has to be an organic, we have a real reason to hang out together because we like each other.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of those happen. And then when I was 16 or 17, I started striking out on my own, playing in the country music industry. I did that for a while, and then I took a break. I was out with an artist, playing on a big tour. We were like on the Hank Jr. tour, then the Alan Jackson tour. I was 18.
Oh man.
Yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot to take in. I'd been playing with my folks at churches, and the next thing I know, I'm on Hank Williams Jr.'s tour going like, and it's a whole different atmosphere, than a baptismal behind the stage,
Totally. Wow.
So it was great, so I did that for a while, and then I got out and I was kind of drawn back into gospel roots, and I was working with the Sullivan family, Jerry and Tammy Sullivan, and they made these great records that I used to listen to as a kid. They were like, it was like acoustic bluegrass rock and roll, man. It was like hillbilly music. It had all the parts I liked. It was like if Elvis had a bluegrass band.
Oh, cool.
And I was a Marty Stewart junkie, since I was young. I heard his records, and that like set me on fire. That's what I wanted to do. Not a lot of kids my age at that time were into that. They were into all, Nirvana had hit and all this, which I liked all that. But man, I was hardcore into, country and B-benders and mandolins and, old Martin guitars.
Yeah.
So anyways, fast forward. So after doing that for a while with the Sullivan family, that was a really big learning experience because it required a lot of me as a sideman to kind of immerse myself into a music that I didn't necessarily grow up with, a specific rhythm that they liked to use and the way they sang and pronounced words and the way that they would execute rhythm was way different. And I'm a big rhythm guitar fan.
Okay.
My favorite guitar players are really rhythm guitar players. I never was much into shredding as I was into somebody that's got a good, hitch in their giddy up, so to speak. So I learned a lot there. And then I got a call from who's now my father-in-law, Cactus Mosier. He had a band, Highway 101. They're really big in the 80s and 90s, and they needed a guitar player. I learned a lot from those guys just about being a professional musician on the road, traveling, dealing with less than desirable circumstances, which as a sideman, there's a saying that says, we play for free, but we are paid to travel and get along. Mm-hmm. And, when I was younger and before I'd been in these groups and I was kind of cast out, so to speak, into this industry, I didn't have a lot of bearing on how to handle a lot of that.
Yeah. Well, especially touring with people like Hank Williams. And
being on those tours, even, I wasn't in his band, but I'm on the opening band and you're around that climate. And I didn't really, I was trying to figure it all out and made a lot of bumps and bruises along the way. So I sort of retreated and went back to what I knew. I'm sure anybody in the music industry would look at this and say, well, everybody sort of has a similar story. It comes from organic relationship and like, oh man, I didn't expect that to happen, but
Still, your story seems very different because there's, a lot of the people that I've interviewed so far, and you're like number 10, I think.
Yes.
They, they're like, oh yeah, high school talent show and high school bands, and then, and then I met someone, and then that's where it kind of took off. But you seemed like you were immersed in it from the beginning.
Yeah. It's all I've ever known.
Like there was no other, for you, there was no like, I think I'm going to be an accountant when I grow up, or I'm going to be a carpenter.
There was no other. I guess you're right. All I saw from the get-go was music, and from my parents. But then moving to Nashville, it just seemed like that's what everybody did then.
Yeah.
Maybe not so much now.
Well, there's a billion people here now.
It's a different
it's a lot
town
more
then.
diverse. But
yeah, at that point, everybody moved here to do music.
When after Highway 101, like when do the Dixie Chicks come in, and when does Wynonna start happening? And
so as it goes, I did Highway for a while, and then I got married. And we had our first kid, and we talked about maybe me staying in town more, not traveling as
like
much,
transitioning more into like session guy, or
and at the time it was still and it still is a great career. It's just a lot more streamlined now that the music industry has changed to be a session guy. I think there was a whole lot more session work in the 90s during the peak here in Nashville of all the country music stuff. And I saw that the whole time growing up here, and that's what I wanted to be, And so we had our first kid, and I was like, I wasn't on the road as much, but I was like, well, maybe I'll try and stay home, and pick up some work and, like carpentry work, and then go, play the session work that I do have until it picks up. I mean, in Nashville, usually the road guys that become session guys do the starve thing, like, well, I came off the road and I starved for 6 months or a year until the phone would start ringing, going out trying to make it happen.
Right.
So that was in the back of my mind through that time. Plus, I just needed to make a living. I had a wife and a new baby.
Yeah.
And so we lived pretty lean and mean during that time. And so I was working as a carpenter as well, and the housing industry took a huge dive. Not like 2 years after I decided to do that.
Yeah.
So I got a call through some friends. Once again, the organic relationship comes back into play. Hey, we need a guitar player. We're out on this tour. Can you do it? And all my work was drying up as a carpenter, and I was like, wow, you try to do, quote unquote, the straight job, and you have to leave that for their backup plan is music. I've kind of had the reverse
right. Yeah.
experience with that. So I went out. It was a gal named Julianne Huff, and she was on the Brad Paisley tour. And yeah, here I go. I ship out on that. I'm playing guitar for her. And
how old was your son?
At that time, he was probably 3.
Okay.
Yeah, and we were getting ready for number 2 at that point. Yeah. So, it was a little tough heading out on the road with a young family at home. It was different from the times before when I ship me out, man. I'll be gone for months at a time. I don't care.
Right.
So obviously, when you have kids, your whole perspective on life changes, especially your time away from them.
Yeah.
So and fast forward from there, one thing leads to another. I started working with another country artist, Joe Nichols, for a couple of years after Julianne's gig, and I'd always been a fan of Wynonna. I always grew up on the Judds records, and my father-in-law, Cactus, he started working with her. They've known each other for a long time, and she was ready to put together a band to go out on the road, a different band, and so she commissioned him, and so he brought me into that fold, which was
there any sort of like, did you have to like audition or?
No, honestly, I don't know if it's unique to my case, but I've not auditioned for any gig that I've ever played, ever. No, I mean, and that goes to say that I get all my work from people that I know.
Yeah.
So they know what I do and
they
what I don't do.
Capable.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be the first to admit if I'm not the guy for it. If I don't have what it takes.
Yeah, that probably is pretty common, I would think.
I think I would think so. I mean, that's been my experience, but I certainly know of guys that go out and do 3 rounds of auditions, and that seems like a scary, scary way to always have to go look for work. But I guess it works different for everybody. Mm-hmm. But so being brought into Wynonna's fold, that was a really special time for me because I knew that music so much as a kid. Yeah. So I was so excited to play those songs. And obviously, she is a phenomenal singer and a phenomenal person. And she had been doing this since she was a kid.
Yeah.
So we really had a common bond there. And so playing with her, man, I really had to step up to the plate. She delivers every night, and I really had to get my ducks as a player in a row for that gig because it's demanding musically. She leaves it all out on the stage, every night, and she expects that.
Mm-hmm. And how long were you with her before something else came up? Or
I think I was 3 years maybe. I was with her, and then my buddy, who played with the Dixie Chicks, they needed a guitarist. They were going over to Europe for a run, and they needed somebody who could play a few instruments, mandolin and different stuff. And I was like, yeah. And he's known me forever. We were old friends. And he asked if I was interested, and why I was gracious enough during this off time of her schedule.
Had the Dixie Chicks already sort of achieved some success, or was this?
Oh,
early?
yes. Oh, no, this is in the last probably 3.5, 4 years.
Right.
So they were huge.
So
they hadn't been on the road in a while yet.
You came along way after the George Bush controversy.
Oh yeah. That was in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
So this is probably 2013 or 12 or somewhere in there.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So yeah, we've gone through almost 20 years of my life at this point, pretty quick.
Was there any? I don't exactly recall the timeline and the controversy, and I mean I sort of remember them being controversial, but I wasn't a big country music fan at the time, and so I just know that there was some stuff going on with them. But was there any residual stuff left from that? Was there any hesitation on your part in joining up with them, or?
No, honestly, from my perspective, I'm in the music business. Politics, it doesn't influence. I play with all walks of life.
Mm-hmm.
I'm here to follow what's good musically.
Yeah.
And my understanding of them was obviously their music
They're
speaks
incredible musicians.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they'd had quite a pedigree of players that have been through their band. So I was honored to even be considered.
That's cool.
So when they called, no, I didn't think about any of that. I could care less. Yeah. I just thought about, wow, there's this amazing group of ladies with these songs that are timeless.
Yeah.
And they've had such a great pedigree of music. And it's a big opportunity, both as a player musically, but also financially for my family. It just was like, wow, this is great. And Wynonna was really gracious during that time. She said, yeah, go.
I was going to ask how that sort of works. Like you're playing with so-and-so and then someone else asks you to.
Yeah, I always like to, I've learned from some musicians that I look up to that are further down the road that I go have, hey, what should I do in this situation, talks with.
Yeah.
And you always want to honor who you've played with. I'm not a bridge burner.
Sure.
And when you do get an opportunity that's going to take you away from a musical relationship that you really respect and cherish, that's tender ground. And I can't say that I've always handled that the best, but I try to get good advice on how to sail those waters.
Yeah.
So I went to her and talked, and she was gracious and was like, yeah, that fits within our schedule.
Yeah.
That'll be fine.
That's cool.
And so it happened pretty quickly. The next thing I know, a truck is pulling up out in front of my house, and these guys are taking all of my guitars and gear and amps, and I'm seeing it shrink wrapped, and it's heading for a jet to go to LA to start rehearsals,
Wow.
and going like, whoa, man, I've always worked out of this town. So I was so used to, coming down like where we're at today, at sound check and coming down here, and the rehearsals are here. You camp out here and
and then you just
drive
go home.
And I'm eating dinner at the house and, trying to get over the headache from having my monitors or my in-ears too loud all day or whatever.
With the Dixie Chicks and with Wynonna, were you just part of the touring band, or were you sitting in on albums and contributing to, some of the albums that were released during those times?
Well, with Wynonna, yes, I was. We made a record with our band, with her, that came out, I think it's 2 years ago now. So yeah, I was really involved in the making and creation of that record and played all the guitars on that, which that doesn't always happen in this town.
Yeah.
This town is known to be pretty divided, to have your road player and your studio player. Never the two shall meet.
Yeah, I was kind of curious about how that...
Yeah, it's a system that's been around since the Bradleys, in the 50s,
sure.
I guess, came up with that, and they had the session guys, and when you
And
get
the road guys. Right?
yeah, well, you get on a roll and guys that know how to record. It's such a different dynamic to be a road player, performer versus getting in the studio and being a creative person.
Right.
Not everybody does that. I think most people have what it takes to do that, but maybe the business doesn't have the patience, one way or the other, for that.
Sure.
So I've always been drawn to the studio and the creative side.
Yeah, and so you enjoyed that process.
I love that process. That's that's the most rewarding for me.
Was Wynonna receptive to your input and your creativity on the guitar parts?
Yeah, at that point
so
we
cool.
we had played live together a lot, and I've always tried, as a musician with who I'm playing with, I try to find my part to really support what they do.
Compliment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you have a singer as spectacular as her, I mean, really otherworldly, as a guitar player, for me, I saw that early on when I started that gig and realized I've really got to step up here and find out how to complement that and to be second banana to that.
Yeah.
And know when to shine and know when to shut up. And she was gracious with me, and always prodding me and maybe pushing me forward to be better at that. So when it came to the studio, we'd had such a working relationship at that point that we were, we're pretty honest with each other. We're very honest, creative discussions could get colorful, which is what takes to make good music. It's pushing each other and prodding. And she's the experienced one by far compared to me. But she's so willing to receive input from everybody. She's willing to listen to everybody's side because she knows it takes a team to make something great.
Yeah.
So with her, I had and made records and recorded and toured. The Dixie Chicks, no. They hadn't made a record since 2006 was their last record, and they hadn't toured. So this was I don't know if this was a toe in the water for them to go out on the road and see, they had that whole controversy, and then they sort of just stopped for a while. It was a lot to go through and walk through, I guess, for them. And so this was a little toe in the water over in Europe. It's kind of how I saw it.
Okay.
And maybe it wasn't, but I was thrilled to be there regardless of what it was.
Yeah, right.
I was a happy guy, man. Whatever, you guys tell me,
Yeah.
So, I hadn't recorded with him.
So pretty much exactly a year ago today, you were on the stage with the Dixie Chicks.
Yeah.
And...
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Everybody's favorite bluegrass artist, Beyonce.
Dude, tell me about that. Tell the people about that. What was that like?
Well, so now we're fast forwarding to we did a world tour last year with the Chicks. So I committed to them for a year, March through April. It was 2016 into this year, 2017. Early on in the tour, we did this acoustic section of the tour. It's like a bluegrass section because they can play it.
Yeah,
man, those girls can play. And I come from that background, and a couple other guys in the band do. So we get to do a pretty legit representation of bluegrass in their show, which is fun.
That's awesome.
Well, Natalie, being the true sight, she's like seeing down the line. She had been really moved by Beyonce's last record, Lemonade, had just come out, and there was a song on that that she really, really loved. So she was singing it, I guess, in the dressing room, and the next thing I know, I get a text, "Hey, we're gonna learn this Beyonce song, and we're gonna play it in the show." And our first reaction
like
is
a bluegrass version of
yeah, and our first reaction is going, "Man,
Are you kidding?
really? Okay." But I'll hand it to her as a visionary. She knows what's going to hit musically for people and what's going to connect. And
What
she had
song
a
was
feeling. It's called Daddy's Lessons.
Yeah.
So it resounded with her.
I knew that, but I just, getting it out for the people.
Yeah, that's right. Daddy's Lessons. So we worked it up, and I wasn't sure how it was going over, honestly, in the show, because that record was brand new. So, and we were in Europe. I didn't know if they knew it, and we played it, and it slowly became like a Dixie Chicks song. And as the tour progressed, we started liking it more. You could see the crowd started liking it more. So we played it throughout the whole year. And towards the end of the tour, or the end of 2016, I guess Beyonce had heard it or saw a YouTube video, or I don't know what happened, but they got in contact somehow.
Uh-huh.
And unbeknownst to any of the guys in the band, we didn't know this. And I got a call like, "Hey, listen, you can't say anything, but what are you doing the next 2 or 3 weeks? Our tour is supposed to be on break."
Uh-huh.
And I said, "I'm just going to be home." "Okay, we'll get back to you." All right. Well, it's all this kind of covert stuff.
Yeah.
And then we find out, hey, they're looking to do this surprise thing for the 50th anniversary of the CMA Awards, and having the Dixie Chicks and Beyonce do a song together on the award show, which, to me, I'm going, wow, that's really cool. I'd never been on the CMA Awards. So I thought, well, that's great. And to be able to play it with the Chicks, who kind of got out of country music for the most part, almost a return.
A return in glorious fashion.
Yeah, bringing the biggest pop star on the planet.
Yeah.
Or she bringing them, however that worked out.
Yeah.
So it's the bluegrass song, and Beyonce liked the way that we played it. So here we go again. I get a plane ticket, and you can't tell anybody. You can tell your wife, but that's it.
Yeah.
Go out to LA, and we set up in this huge rehearsal facility, and I'm sitting playing an instrument. I'm playing a mandolin that I learned when I was 11, sitting in the back of my parents' van, and I'm sitting in this big sound stage, and there's hundreds of people working on this. And, Beyonce's sitting here on the couch, and she's talking about kids, or, and the girls were all goofing around. And something kind of clicks every now and then when you go, wow, it's not really just about the music. Especially for a sideman, it's kind of where the music takes you, and it's really about the relationships you make along the way, or the things that you get to see. And for me as a kid that came out of, playing little Baptist, Nazarene, Catholic, you name it, churches growing up, to then I'm sitting, in a room with an instrument that's normally not used in a worldwide pop setting. Right. I'm holding a mandolin.
You don't see a lot of mandolin on.
Yeah, I was sitting there going, wow, and I'm, sitting here with the Dixie Chicks and Beyonce, and we're working on a song to go do this big surprise TV performance, and it's really elaborate, and there's all these people involved, and that was pretty great. But the caveat to the whole thing was I couldn't tell anybody.
Yeah.
I couldn't say anything,
Right.
and finally, the night of, they're like, yeah, you can text some family members and stuff. So I'm like texting, hey guys, watch the TV tonight. Oh, we're already busy. We got dinner with so-and-so. And I'm like, you really should watch TV tonight. Watch the CMAs. What? Well, so I'm like trying to get the word out. Hey guys, this is a cool moment. You should see it. But I had to be pretty secretive about it.
Yeah.
But it was a great experience. So I was honored that they included me on that, for sure.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Tell me about sweating it out at some of the local dives lately.
Oh yeah, well,
it's not all we've talked.
Yeah,
we've talked about all these glory stories.
That's a good That's a good angle. So
Yeah, I want to segue into what's going on now.
as a sideman, when you're on a tour, you play that set list. You might vary here and there, but you get your marks and you get what you play and you deliver that. You strive to be consistent and find inspiration in that consistency.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. And that's kind of that's the benchmark for a professional. Consistency, but inspired consistency. That's what you are. That's why you've been hired.
Right. Because you want to make the audience feel like you're feeling it for the first time.
Yeah. And so digging in emotionally and finding a spot. Luckily, I play with people that play inspired music, you know, so that it's not as hard a job to find that inspiration. But after you do that for, so let's say a year, you know, you might get to a point where you're going, man, I've been playing the same stuff over and over, and my chops as a player have declined outside of that.
Yeah.
So I've never been one to just, I've always worked. I've always toured or played or been on records. I've never been a guy to play clubs, which is typically the best way to come up as a musician. You go out and bust your rear playing top 40 music, learning all the riffs and learning everything. And I don't know a cover song to save my life, you know? So some mutual friends we have, Scotty and Johnny Murray here in town, they were playing just a fun gig downtown. They're like, hey, just bring your guitar and come play. So I did that and just showed up and started, you know, they call whatever songs, just good old country songs I know, but I don't necessarily play every day.
Yeah.
Well, I got a voracious appetite for it, and I'd finished my tour, and I didn't have another tour to go on, so I was home, and besides my session work, you know, it's better than sitting at the house, you know, going, well, you know, what do I do?
Right.
I worked in my yard for a good month, and then got tired of that.
Yeah.
So I started playing downtown, and just started connecting with all these wonderful musicians, you know, these really exceptional players and singers, and just I really enjoy that. I mean, yeah, you're lugging your amp down there, trying to find parking and get into the little dive bar and play.
But there's a little more freedom and
You're
flexing
you're having to flex,
Yeah.
and then you find out your weak spots, which that's what you want to do. Even in the studio, it's not really flexing as much as you're still finding creative stuff and sounds, and it's not just play. It's not just kick off. You get time to do it 2 or 3 times, or, you know, overdub it, or give me that track again. Let me try and get it better.
Yeah.
Live, you don't get that. And so when you play clubs, it's like you get one chance to, you know, kick off a Ray Price shuffle.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
And so then they look at you and they count it off, and you're like, oh, wait, it's in the key of F. Oh, here we go. You know what I mean? It's like, I like that challenge. So I've been doing that all summer, and I've liked it so much that there's a bar over on my side of town that I gathered some of these folks, these really talented singers and players, and we booked this weekly gig to go play, you know, for fun, but only play the songs we want to play.
Yeah.
How we want to play them. Come and enjoy it if you like, if you dare. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's really inspiring to do that.
Well, tell the people when and where.
Oh yeah, if you're in Nashville and you need something to do on a Wednesday night this month, the month of November, got to come to Betty's Grill. It's on the west side. It's the best dive bar on the west side of Nashville. We're gonna move it to every Tuesday night starting in December. It's a hoot, man. We have a ton of fun. All our buddies show up, and we get to really stretch out and sometimes make fools of ourselves, but that's fine too.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Do you do any songwriting of your own, or do you have any plans to release any kind of album, or are you just pretty content being a sideman? I don't mean to say that like it's
no, man. That's precisely the way to ask that question. And my answer to that is I've worked so hard at being a sideman for so long. I've always, been a songwriter and have written songs, and no hits, I might add, but I've written songs that some of them have been recorded. And I had a band years ago. We were making our Nashville rock and roll rounds, and that was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So I have made some records. I was in a band called Band of Love, and we made a rock record. That's been probably 5-6 years ago. We're big in Japan. No, we're not. We're not big.
It's a great Tom Waits song.
Yeah, it's a killer song. Yeah. So I'm doing more of that. Actually, quite a bit more. I've been doing that a lot this year, and I've got some artists that I'm working with. I love writing lyrics, and I love getting better at that. I'll never claim to get remotely close to Billy Joe Shaver or some of these people that I look up to. But I do like it.
Yeah. All right, we're almost wrapped up here. I have
Thank you for existing this long with us.
I have a few final sort of just fun questions.
Wake up if you're asleep. Wake up.
This'll do it.
Your toast is burning.
Possibly. Do you have any jokes?
No, I'm a terrible joke teller.
Really? Okay, no jokes?
Yeah. No, man. I mean, the only jokes I can remember I could repeat over a microphone.
Okay. Good. Fine. That's fine.
I mean, I could, but you wouldn't be able to air this podcast. Of course, it might wake up the audience.
No, that's all right.
That's a good question. I can't remember jokes, man.
I know. Well, some people, like they keep a couple stored in their brain.
Well, I mean, I have a couple, but there's no way you could use them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then my family would probably.
We won't paint that picture.
We don't need to. I'm a good, just honest.
You're
clean.
You're a on the fly, off the cuff. You're a good witty. You're very sharp.
Oh, well, I don't know.
You've always got the intelligent comeback and the
hey, can we
the quips.
So by intelligent comeback, can we is there a way we can maybe email this whole interview to my wife so she can
yeah.
I just need her to hear that.
Yeah, sure.
It'll do me some good.
You just send me your
Bless her
email.
heart, she has to live with this twisted mind.
Yeah. And now like maybe 100 people are going to hear it too.
Maybe. Well, by now they've already turned it off. Who is this guy?
Yeah.
Oh man, this is boring. Same boring stuff. Tell me about your childhood.
Guy. Yeah. Give me some of your deserted island albums or songs.
Ooh, boy, that's a good one. What do I always come back to? Bob Dylan made this record, Time Out of Mind, that Daniel Lanois produced.
Yeah.
And so I bought that record when I don't remember how old I was. I was actually traveling with my folks at the time. I put it on and I listened to it, and I didn't listen to it again. I was like, what in God's name is this? Because I knew about all of Dylan's work prior, but this didn't resonate with me. This is an interesting story. It's going somewhere, I promise. I got stuck down, I think we were in Texas somewhere, and we were staying at somebody's house, and there was nothing to do, and I had my CD Walkman, and that CD I'd listened to everything else. I was like, so I put it in one night, and I put on headphones, and I sat down, laid on the carpet floor, and listened to that record, and it clicked. It was the weirdest thing, man. Usually, I respond to something right away, or I don't, and I get, I formulate an opinion pretty quickly.
Yeah.
For better or for worse. But I do, I go, that resonates or that doesn't. And I can A and B pretty quick. This is the good pile. This is the pile that's not my thing. This record was a learning experience for me because at first I heard it and I went, no, don't get it at all. Not at all. Why did I spend $17 for this at Tower Records?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. Now it's a lot easier to check out music, I guess, because you don't have to pay for it. But back then it wasn't. And anyways, I listened to it and I heard what he was singing and I heard the looseness of the band, and I actually was taken somewhere in headphones, especially. And I listened to that one record that entire year. I didn't put another record in my Walkman.
Yeah.
You know, maybe I might have put in like the Braveheart soundtrack. That was a really, I don't know if you remember that movie, that Mel Gibson movie, but that soundtrack, Irish and Scottish music was kind of on the rise, with the dancing shows and all that stuff or whatever.
Lord of the Dance.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, River Dance. That's it. Yeah, little, But I love all that traditional Irish music. I listen to a lot of that. Braveheart was kind of like for public consumption, version of that. Anyways, back to Bob Dylan record. That record really influenced me in how a track or how musicians can play together loosely and find it's the same shuffle groove maybe, but it's the way that you are inside of that groove, versus just making another blues. Those guys crafted kind of an emotion with some of those grooves, that band and him, that made it spooky and made it like more of like a scene in a movie to me. Yeah. Which led me into, from there, maybe Tom Waits records and things like that definitely go take that whole method and run. Yeah. That's one. I've always come back to that record for a lot of stuff. There's a guitar player in Nashville named Richard Bennett. He is a producer. He produced Steve Earle's that Guitar Town record. Yeah. Did some Emmylou Harris and the Nash Ramblers. And he was the producer on all the Marty Stewart, like 2 or 3 Marty Stewart records that have some exceptional guitar playing on them. There's one song in particular on I think it's on his Tempted record. It's called Till I Found You. The guitar solo on that Richard Bennett plays is one of the most beautiful electric guitar solos I've ever heard in my life. I love the tone, the touch, the voicing, everything. He has played some of my favorite solos. And fortunately in my life, later in life now, I've got to know him and be able to go ask him some annoying questions. But so that Tempted record from Marty Stewart, I believe that was the record, but the song is Till I Found You. That song, if I want to gauge myself as when I'm taking a solo or I'm laying down a recording track and going, oh, what do I do here? I usually judge it by, would Richard Bennett do that? Because his tone and touch and timing are excellent. Another one would probably be, there's a few Tom Petty records in there. Definitely the Wildflowers record, but there was one, he had this box set that I got as a kid, maybe not a kid, as a teenager. He made that 6-disc box set. I remember getting that for Christmas. I was so thrilled. Yeah. And there is a disc in there. It's disc 6. I don't know. It's disc 6. Sure. There you go. Uh-huh. And it's a collection of B-sides. I love, the first 5 or 6 tracks of that. There's just these songs that weren't hits of his that are killer. I listen to that a lot and really use that for a lot of studio reference too. Yeah, I'm a huge Tom Petty fan. The day after he passed away, Lightning 100, just 24 hours. As they should. Deep cuts that I had never heard before. Yeah. And all of them were just like, this could have been on the Greatest Hits album or for sure. Like all of his songs are just, he's so consistent. Yeah, he writes those songs that allow emotion through. He doesn't have to describe it, I guess, and spell it out for you. Yeah. And I love that. Yeah. A song that like, it means different things to different people. So definitely there's a few of his records in there. Then I have, a lot of bluegrass records, some Stanley Brothers records or specific songs of theirs. Okay, man, you don't get too many, all right? All right. So, but basically, Time Out of Mind, there's a couple Marty Stewart records in there that I'll always be my gauge. Tempted, and there was another one called This One's Gonna Hurt You. Great guitar track for those of you that want to nerd out, called Down Home on Marty Stewart's This One's Gonna Hurt You. Like some of the best hillbilly electric guitar. So great. There you go. What
Give me a band or an album that you listen to that might surprise people.
Oh, Phoenix.
Oh, yeah.
I love Phoenix.
Yeah.
Those guys, total left field of what I normally do in life.
Yeah.
I love their music. I love their songs.
Yeah.
We took our son, our 12-year-old, to the Ryman to see him when they're here in town this summer. And
Man,
just,
they're so good.
They're so great.
Uh-huh.
I
haven't seen them live.
Oh, they're so good. You have to go see them live. And I love guitar players as much as I love the technical side of the craft of playing guitar. I like guys that play guitar not like a guitar.
Yeah.
And those guys do it.
Yeah.
And I have to say, I cop some of their stuff when I'm
That's cool.
doing things because I love their approach.
I mean, that's rad to like bring in like pop and rock. I mean, they're very pop kind of band.
So pop,
and
you know.
to bring that into, what you're doing.
Oh, man, I find it the worlds collide for me a lot with that, and you got to respect these guys are.
You were
French.
so quick to answer that.
Oh yeah, these guys are French, and they're singing in a language that's not their first language. They're singing in English.
Yeah.
That alone, and writing lyrics and that, but just the sonic soundscapes, those guys, you can tell they craft that stuff. They spend a lot of time. I really appreciate those records.
Cool.
Yeah.
Last one. Is there a movie or a TV show that you've been thinking about lately? Doesn't have to be the last thing you've seen. Just what's kind of been on your mind. Like it might not even be something that you've seen, but something you want to see.
Ooh. Okay.
Anything.
Well, I've heard a lot, and even from you guys, while we've been working on some of this product stuff, of this, I believe the name of is it Mindhunters?
Mindhunter?
Mindhunters. I've had Mindhunter. I've had, that's been recommended to me by a number of people. So now I know I have to watch it because I've heard you guys. I've been curious, and I saw it up on the Netflix queue.
I'm 2 episodes in. And I think Dave's already seen the entire season. It's amazing.
Yeah. Well, I don't go to movies. I love Netflix.
Yeah.
And
You can go to movies with kids.
Yeah,
right?
you can't. Exactly, right?
Yeah,
and if you do, it's you're walking out $60 poorer.
Yeah.
So I'm glad to pay for it, but man, with kids, it's just,
Sometimes I sneak and I take the day off work. And
just go have it, but not when you're doing official bags business.
Yeah, I was going to
full
say,
disclaimer,
I better
full disclaimer.
Out, so. You didn't hear that, Lloyd.
What are we talking about?
It's the only way I can go see a movie.
Yeah, so I'm the same way. I like to watch, I like to go to the movies, but I really like character development. Yeah. And Netflix has blown my mind.
They're doing some really good stuff.
I've drank the Kool-Aid on Stranger Things.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I haven't done season 2 yet.
Oh,
I haven't
man.
started it.
My wife and I watched it.
Time,
we just basically ate it for dinner.
Yeah.
That's what we did.
I can't wait.
So yeah, Mindhunter is on next because I think I loved House of Cards. I love what Netflix does. I'm on the bandwagon, with whatever they do. Yeah. So that one's in my mind.
Cool. Mindhunter
on the mind.
And there you have it.
And that's the rest of the story.
This concludes our podcast with Justin Weaver.
Wake up. Wake up. Your alarm is going off. You need to get to work.
Dude, thanks so much, man.
Thanks for having me.
Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, that wraps it up for episode 10 of Maker's Mic. If you're in the Nashville area, be sure to catch Justin at Betty's every Wednesday night through November, and then every Tuesday night in December. And if you like what you heard here on Maker's Mic, please be sure to subscribe. Also, leave us a rating and review on iTunes. We'd love to hear your thoughts. We'll catch you next time on Maker's Mic. Bye.